So, mandatory sustainability reporting for Indonesia, what it's meant for you. So, we are at eco-sustainability. You already watched the short video about this eco-sustainability. Eco-sustainability is a consultancy firm at headquarters in Singapore, with presence in Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. Our core services include sustainability reporting, consulting, carbon credits, training, and policy. We are standards contributors for ISSB, FERA, SASB, Singapore's Voluntary Carbon Market, SBTi, and GHG protocol. We are in the 6 countries. We have right now around 102 projects. We have also 21 consultants, and we follow the 17 standards. This is our presence in the Southeast Asia. We have in Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and our headquarters in Singapore. This is what we do from eco-sustainability. We have green consulting, carbon credit projects, sustainability reporting, education, and think tank. This is a standard and frameworks that we follow. This is our standards contribution. And the last one, not in here, but we also are standard contributors for gold standards, And for today's talk series, the agenda and topics, the objective are gain a clear understanding of sustainability reporting and how the ISSB sets gold standard for it. Gain a clear overview of the Indonesia's ISSB adoption through PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, covering timelines, regulation, sector, and transition reliefs. Learn practical steps companies can take now, including strengthening governance, improving data system, conducting materiality assessment, and preparing for GHG reporting and assurance. This session will be recorded. Please keep your microphone on mute during the presentation. Post your questions in the chat box. My team will respond or address them during the Q&A. And remember, there is no such thing as a silly questions. Now let's get started for the topics. If we are talking about carbon credit in Indonesia, we must know about the Presidential Regulation number 110/2025. This is the regulation that the fundamental regulation for the carbon credit in Indonesia. The presidential regulations stated penyelenggaraan in Indonesia, we said penyelenggaraan instrumen nilai ekonomi karbon dan pengendalian emisi gas rumah kaca nasional. Or we can say in English, the implementation of carbon economic value instruments and national greenhouse gas emission control. This presidential regulation signed and effective on October 10, 2025. Because of this new regulation, the previous regulation, which is Presidential Regulation number 98, year 2021, is no longer effective. Because of this regulation, the Presidential Regulation number 110, 2025, is becoming big headline for Climate Future APEC Summit 2026 in Bangkok, 17 and 18 June 2026. Why this regulation is very important? Because one, this regulation is the foundational framework for Indonesia's national carbon economy system. The presidential regulation is not merely an environmental regulation. It represents the development of state capacity to manage a carbon economy. This includes carbon accounting, carbon finance, carbon market, MRV bureaucracy, carbon registry, interministerial governance, and regional climate governance system. And the last one is carbon is no longer positioned solely as a supporting instrument for achieving Indonesia NDC target, but also as an independent national economic instrument. This represents a major paradigm shift. That's why this regulation is very important for Indonesia carbon market. I mentioned there are 5 crucial differences between Presidential Regulation number 98, 2021 and Presidential Regulation number 110, 2025. The one is clearer recognition and regulation of the voluntary carbon market. Because in the new regulation, it provides a far more explicit legal foundation for the voluntary carbon market. Second thing is that clarifies the recognition of carbon units, domestic and international certification scheme, international transfer mechanism, authorization procedures, and corresponding adjustment mechanism. And number 3 is very important because the new regulation creates a more operational framework for the use of international standards such as FERA, gold standard, and other recognized mechanisms. Number 2, strengthening the carbon economic value architecture. In the new presidential regulation, no longer position carbon economic value, or we say in Indonesia nilai ekonomi karbon, merely as an emission control instrument, but as part of the broader development of the national carbon economy system. Strengthening the NEC framework, or we can say the carbon economic value framework, through a more comprehensive and integrated set of instruments, including carbon trading, result-based payment, carbon levies, carbon unit management, carbon allocation, and national carbon reserve. This also introduced strategic concepts such as carbon allocation and carbon reserves. In the new presidential regulation, carbon trading and NDC achievement may now proceed in parallel. Presidential Regulation number 110 of 2025 clarifies that carbon trading activities may proceed simultaneously with efforts to achieve Indonesia's NDC targets while maintaining the integrity of Indonesia's commitments under Paris Agreement. In the new presidential regulation, maintaining governmental control over international transfer authorization, corresponding adjustment, and national carbon reserve management, while simultaneously allowing carbon trading, mitigation project investment, and market development to progress in parallel with national NDC achievement efforts. Number 4, establishment of the separate carbon unit registry system, or we can say in Indonesia SRUK. In the new presidential regulation, introduce the carbon unit registry system, or we can say in Indonesia sistem registry unit karbon, atau we say SRUK, as a dedicated system for the management of carbon unit within the implementation of NEC instrument. SRUK is responsible for carbon unit management, ownership, registration, trading transaction, and market interoperability, while SRNPPI remain responsible for emission inventories, NDC achievement tracking, and national climate governance. And the last one, in the new presidential regulation, strengthening cross-section governance and the role of the regional governance. In the new presidential regulation, strengthen climate and carbon economy governance through a clearer, more structured, and more decentralized cross-sector coordination framework. The new presidential regulation explicitly allocates responsible across ministries according to their emission sectors. We can say in this there is a Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources for energy and transport, the Ministry of Industry for industrial emission, Ministry of Agriculture for agriculture and livestock, Ministry of Forestry for forestry and peatland management, and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries for blue carbon management. Also, there is new stepping stone from Indonesia. There is new regulation that already effective from Indonesia is the Ministry of Forestry Regulation number 6, 2026. The regulation is about the procedure for carbon trading through greenhouse gas emission offset in the forestry sector. This regulation effective in April 2026. It's a very new regulation. It's about the GSG, greenhouse gases, and the carbon project in the forest sector. The objective of this regulation is about the implementation of the Presidential Regulation number 110/2025. The aims is to achieve Indonesian nationality determined contribution or NDC through market-based GSG emission offsets in the forestry sector. And then also have a roadmap, strategic roadmap. There is also a core instrument. The core instrument are the SPE-GRK. This is the official domestic certificate for verified emission reduction. There is also SRUK, the integrated electronic registry system for all carbon unit and transactions. Also, there is a baseline emission established as the business as usual reference for measuring actual impact. Authorized participant for in the forest sector is the one, private sectors holders of PBPH and PBPJL licenses, communities such as social forestry group or indigenous communities. The last one is the government. We can say the minister and also the governance. In this regulation also has the operational workflow and also stated about the international trading and safeguards. Now we talk about the why mandatory sustainability reporting matters, especially for the Indonesia country. Before we say about the why is important, we must say about what is sustainability reporting. The sustainability reporting is the public disclosure of companies' non-financial performance to help stakeholders make informed decisions based on the company's sustainability and long-term value. Why the mandatory sustainability reporting? One, because it's attracting global capital. Global ESG assets are projected to exceed about 50 trillion US dollar. International investors like BlackRock or Vanguard and lenders like the World Bank increasingly demand standardized ESG data before investing. Mandatory reporting ensures Indonesian companies are visible and investable on the global stage. Why mandatory? Because managing climate risk. As an island nation, Indonesia faces significant physical risk, rising sea level, extreme weather, flood, and transition risk, global shift away from coal. Reporting forces companies to conduct stress tests and disclosure how they will survive in a low carbon economy, which protects the stability of the entire Indonesian financial system. Also, number three is meeting the national climate commitments or NDC. Indonesia has committed to a net zero emission target by 2060 or sooner. The government cannot track progress toward this goal without data from the private sector. Mandatory reporting provides the carbon accounting necessary for the National Carbon Exchange, or we can say in IDX Carbon, to function effectively. Number four, in enhancing corporate resilience and reputation. Reporting is more than just compliance. It is a management tool. By tracking metrics like water usage or employee turnover, actually companies identify operational inefficiencies. Furthermore, it builds public trust, reducing the risk of greenwashing accusations that can damage brand value in an era of high transparency. And this is very important for supplier to European, many because of supply chain security. Many Indonesian companies are supplier to European or American companies or firms such as palm oil, textile, and mining. New international laws like the EU Deforestation Regulation or the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive require proof of sustainability. Mandatory local reporting prepares Indonesian firms to meet this strict export requirement. This is the regulations which we talk about mandatory reporting. We have POJK. It means that we say in Indonesia is Peraturan Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. SEOJK, we say in Indonesia is Surat Edaran Otoritas Jasa Keuangan. TKBI, we simply call Taksonomi untuk Keuangan Berkelanjutan Indonesia. And that we're talking about in this talk series is PSPK 1 and PSPK 2, that full alignment with IFRS S1 and S2, that is mandatory start in 1 January 2027. Mandatory sustainability reporting, also we have CBAM. The standard is too many standards and too little clarity. There are hundreds of standard frameworks. that we already know. But making sense of the framework and standard, we have basic of the baseline of the standard. The first baseline is ISSB. ISSB standard. Also, we have the regional and regulatory adaptation. We have EU CSRD, IDX Carbon, SGX, and also we have a foundational framework. We have GRI, SASB, TCFD. Now we talk about the ISSB. What is the ISSB? ISSB is the International Sustainability Standard Board, was created under the IFRS Foundation at COP26 to bring the same discipline to sustainability reporting that IFRS brings to financial reporting. This is the global baseline for sustainability reporting. For ISSB, we have the IFRS S1. This is more about the general sustainability disclosure. The S1 sets the overall framework for sustainability-related financial disclosure based on the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, or TCFD, architecture of disclosing sustainability information, focus on the needs of investor and the financial markets, and also has the IFRS S2, most about the climate-related disclosure. This IFRS S2 align with the TCFD recommendation, should be alongside with IFRS S1 to meet investor information needs, require industry-specific disclosure supported by accompanying guidance built on SASB standard. ISSB adaptation around the world. So over 50% of global GDP and around 60% of global market capitalization have adopted or are aligning with the ISSB standard in their regulatory framework. So, ISSB and Indonesia adoption for, we can say, the PSPK1 and PSPK2. Actually, Indonesia, on 1st July 2025, Indonesia Sustainability Standard Board, or we can say the Dewan Standar Keberlanjutan Ikatan Akuntan Indonesia, atau we can call it DSK IAI, officially ratify Indonesian first National Sustainability Disclosure Standard, or we can say in bahasa Indonesia Standar Pengungkapan Keberlanjutan, or SPK, consists of PSPK1 and PSPK2. This standard will become effective from 1 January 2027. PSPK align with the ISSB. This SPK mark a fundamental shift in sustainability reporting for Indonesian company. Why? Because we talk about from impact-centric focus to the disclosure of financial risk and opportunity, from voluntary reporting to the structured mandatory obligation, from standalone report to integration with financial statement. The SPK, specifically PSPK1 and PSPK2, require disclosure regarding the financial materiality of sustainability risk. Company must now report how factors like climate change and resource scarcity influence their financial performance, strategic resilience, and long-term value creation. The paradigm shift is, if there is a climate change increases the physical risk in the company, company right now must say that we have the climate change increasing for and in our physical risk. Here is the specific dollar amount it will cost due to the physical risk of the climate change. This is the specific dollar amount it will cost the company and what the company are doing to protect the profits. So it's not about the inside out, it's about the outside in. How the climate change can affect the financial of the company and how the company can protect the profit because of the climate change. Climate change increases. This initiative brings Indonesia into parity with leading global jurisdictions already implementing IFRS S1 and S2. Actually, in many countries in Southeast Asia, actually already implemented this standard, ISSB. So Indonesia will be fully implement this standard in 2027. During these days, during this year, it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory actually to implement the regulation. We already say about the PSPK1 and PSPK2. PSPK1 is based on IFRS S1. PSPK2 based on IFRS S2. The effective will be January 1, 2027. Strategic objective, the SPK aims to accelerate access to green financing and ensure Indonesian companies remain competitive within global sustainability supply chain. Why is the Indonesian aligning with the ISSB? This is very important because the reason is ISSB is global comparability. Indonesia companies use the same sustainability data language as a global market. Number two, they also important investor confidence. Reliable information improve assessment of risk and opportunities. Number three is market readiness. And the last one is climate risk transparency. Decision useful climate data support resilience in the highly vulnerable nation. Now we talk about the understanding of PSPK1 and PSPK2 requirement, structure, and application. PSPK1 and PSPK2, actually, the scope for PSPK1 is cover all sustainability-related risks and opportunity that could reasonably affect a company cash flow or access to finance. For PSPK2, the focus specifically on climate-related risks and climate-related opportunities. What must be disclosed for PSPK1 is material sustainability risk and opportunity across ESG topics. For PSPK2, material climate risk, climate opportunity, resilience strategies, and GSG emissions. For the focus, primary focus for PSPK1, broad sustainability integration into financial reporting. PSPK2, climate change as a financial risk and strategic issue. For example, for PSPK1, we can say one is the water management, human capital, biodiversity, community relation, and governance practices. For PSPK2, the example is about the flooding, typhoon, heat stresses, carbon pricing, energy transition risk. And this is the 4 core components of disclosure. Both PSPK1 and PSPK2 follow the internationally recognized disclosure. It has the governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and targets. For the materiality assessment requirement, this is about the material that could influence investor decision, which are identify their sustainability related risks and opportunity, assess with which issues materially impact enterprise value, disclosure only what is material, avoiding noise, clutter, or generic statement. And the last one is the document the methodology to support assurance and regulatory review. Role of industry, because of the SPK, which is PSPK 1 and PSPK 2 fully aligned with the ISSB, ISSB integrates SASB. So Indonesian companies are encouraged to use SASB industry metrics. Why SASB? Because it identifies financial material sustainability issue by industry. It helps company avoid irrelevant disclosure, and also it supports comparability across companies in the same sector. Climate disclosure focus under PSPK 1. For PSPK 2. For PSPK 2 require disclosure of physical risks such as typhoon, floods, or extreme heat. Transition risk, we can say about the new regulation, carbon pricing, and technology changes. And about the climate-related opportunities is about such as energy efficiency or green finance. For the climate governance and strategies, company must provide clear explanation of board oversight of climate issue. This is very important. And the second thing is management responsibility and how climate factors influence investment, capital allocation, and strategic direction. Investor actually want to know not only what risks exist, but what the company is doing about them. So actually, we can say about not from inside, not only from inside out, but from outside in. This is a very important thing. For the metrics and targets, actually for PSPK 2 requires disclosure of climate-related metrics relevant to the company's sectors. We have also greenhouse gas emissions, Scope 1, Scope 2, and eventually Scope 3. Progress toward climate targets or transition plans. Quantitative data is essential for comparing performance over time. This is the scenario analysis. Scenario analysis help companies stress test their strategies. They must analyze how their business would perform under multiple climate scenarios, such as 1.5 Celsius degree world at 2 Celsius degree transition or high emission pathway. This reveals vulnerability, opportunity, and strategic blind spot. So the company also must have the scenario analysis. For the SPK, PSPK 1, PSPK 2, who is covered? The covered based on the Financial Service Authority, or we can say in Indonesia is Otoritas Jasa Keuangan, companies that listed on the Indonesian Stock Exchange, financial service institutions, banks, insurance providers, and capital market participants, and other publicly accountable entities currently subject to Peraturan OJK number 51 year 2017. Early adoption is strongly encouraged, particularly for companies with international investor, global supply chain exposure, regulatory obligation in the European Union. So the company that meets the requirement is encouraged to early adoption for the PSPK1, SPK, especially for the PSPK1 and PSPK2. This is the timeline actually. Timeline and implementation for the SPK, especially for the PSPK1 and PSPK2. We can say it started from the December 2024 publication of the SPK roadmap, and July 1, 2025 ratification of PSPK1 and PSPK2, August 11, 2025 national launch of the standard, 2026 preparation period and voluntary adoption, January 1, 2027, this is the mandatory implementation effective date. And in early 2028, publication of the first SPK compliant report. So, we already talked about the ISSB, SPK, and PSPK1, PSPK2, and the mandatory that fully implemented in January 1, 2027. We still have time if we want to implement, if the company want to implement the SPK, especially for PSPK1 and PSPK2. Now the question is, what company should do now? This is a question that we must, the company must know about this. So we suggested some suggestion. Now we can start getting started with the sustainability reporting. We can simply say that start small, stay consistent, build forward. This is the circle of the sustainability, actually the implementation of the sustainability reporting. So we have the 3 golden rules before you start. Start with the data you already have. Don't aim the perfection on day one. The last thing is involve the right people sustainability. Right people sustainability is a team effort. So, step 1 that we suggest, the company must understand the business context. Know your company size, operations, stakeholders, and key impacts. This sets the foundation for meaningful reporting. This is a very basic fundamental for the company. Understand the business context. Number 2, what company must do? Do gap analysis. Gap analysis is a diagnostic health check, actually, for your company's current reporting. It identifies the distance between what you are currently doing. Right now is doing under a POJK 51 2070, and what you are legally required to do under PSPK1 and PSPK2 by 2027. We suggest about the gap analysis is 1, the materiality gap. Second is the governance and strategy gap. Third is the data and metric gap. Fourth is the connectivity gap. And the last one is the scenario analysis gap. The gap analysis is very important from the beginning of the company. If want to implement the SPK and PSPK1, especially, and PSPK2. And then step 3, identify material ESG issues. Focus on what matters most to your business and your stakeholders. Step 4, map the current practices and data availability. List what you're already doing and what data you have, and what data you have, even if it is incomplete. So list, this is also very important, is list what you already doing and the data that you already have. Even the data is not complete. Step 5, collect baseline data. Start quantifying energy, water, waste, fuel, commuting, etc. Your baseline helps you track progress. For example, energy. You can say that electricity bills, waste, invoices from the waste collector or recycles, travel, procurement. Step 6, build internal capacity. Train and involve your team. Sustainability is not a one-person job. It's a team job. So you must have a great team. Next is build a sustainability roadmap. The company must have a roadmap. Plan your next steps, short, medium, and long term. Next steps is set simple KPIs and targets. Try simple KPIs, not sophisticated KPIs, but little simple things for the KPI and targets. Translate goals into measurable outcomes. Keep it realistic and trackable. Step 9. Start small, iterate, and improve. Don't wait for perfection. Start, learn, and grow each time. Actually, for this is the step that we offer the company to do. If you want to for Indonesian company to wants to implement PSPK 1 and PSPK 2. In eco-sustainability empowers your company actually to transform sustainability mandates into strategic competitive advantage. So actually, in sustainability can help your company to do all the steps for your company to implement the PSPK 1 and PSPK 2. Bringing it all together from reporting to value creation. Sustainability reporting evolves as company matures. Think of it as part of strategy, not just compliance. Continuous improvements drives long-term value. Companies that start early gain competitive edge. Start early. Not only start early, but stay consistent. And also, the most important thing is focus on value creation. So, actually, we are talking about the implementation in 2027 about the PSPK 1 and PSPK 2. As Indonesia moves toward mandatory SPK implementation in 2027, eco-sustainability is prepared to support your company in conducting gap analysis and building a robust framework for financial grade sustainability reporting. So we can actually account sustainability would like to help the company in Indonesia to implement the PSPK 1 and PSPK 2 in 2027. That's all that we for the topics for tonight. If you have any questions, please do. Thank you. So, we have. Do you have any questions? Don't hesitate to ask the questions. Actually, we still have time.
Pak Henry, I have one question, a very short question actually. So,
Okay, Pak.
in the case of Indonesia, what is the role of the regional government, like regency or or like what we call it kabupaten here in Indonesia, and province compared to the national in the center in Jakarta, Pak?
Hmm. Okay, Pak. About the what? Okay, thank you, Pak Rinaldi, for the questions. It's great questions, Pak. So actually, for the local governments such as governor or bupati, we can say in Indonesia bupati.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
region.
regional governments like such as the governor or bupati, actually they can involve in this carbon project, Pak. As the regulation, as the regulator actually involved in this carbon project. What can be involved for the governments? Actually, as mentioned in, wait, we can say wait. So as we can see, Pak, we can say more about in this for the example is the main regulation from the Ministry of Forestry number 6 2026. Actually, we can see in the regulation the regional governments can participate for the carbon project actually. So especially for the government can participate for the carbon project, such as uh, if I'm not mistaken, from the regulation in the regulation, so the governor can participate for the sake of the community, for the people in their area. If there is a forest that want to do the carbon project, the governor can the local government can do the carbon project in that forest actually. But the permits must be go uh, to the to the central government actually. So that's one of the example, Pak, for the local government in this carbon project. Especially we can see this and this most of it in this regulation, Pak, for the
Yeah, so
forestry sector actually. For
yeah,
another
Pak Henry,
sector, yeah, for another
Pak Henry,
sector yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Anything? Okay.
Yeah, Pak Henry, is it possible that the local government, like region or mayor of uh, can they recommend on this project, a particular project in their area to the central government in Jakarta, like
Uh,
giving recommendation like that's.
based on the regulation, it can, but if we study more about the regulation, it can, but give the local government can give the recommendation, but the most important thing is the permit also from the central government. So this one is, we can say, for the forest from the Ministry of Forestry. Actually, it can, Pak,
Okay.
based on the regulation, Pak, based on the regulation.
Pak Henry, is the blue carbon and the green carbon also the permit issued by the same ministry or the different ministry?
For the blue carbon is different ministry, Pak. For the blue carbon, we can say in here, Pak, for the blue carbon is from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Pak. Jadi kalau dalam bahasanya kita dalam Kementerian Kelautan, Pak. Jadi kalau for the green carbon from the Ministry of Forestry, Pak.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay. Do you have any experience with which one is more difficult or same difficult or same easy?
Okay, it's a great question, Pak. Both have both project uh, so Pak. So both project are very interesting, Pak. We have learn from another project. For each project is very quite interesting, Pak. Both project, Pak, which is blue carbon and green carbon. Quite interesting, Pak. Quite interesting.
Okay, Pak Henry, since I am very new with this project, so I'm still learning a lot. So learning from you, from Pak Kigan as well. So far, thank you very much for the answer, Pak. So I let the other participant to to give the question to for you, Pak. Thank you, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Pak. Thank you, Pak. Okay. Any questions?
So
So,
one more question, Pak.
okay, Pak.
Pak Henry, is it possible that Pemda can develop the BUMD for like Badan Usaha Milik Daerah, something like that, for this project as well, Pak? So I have some friends who works in some area that I have already told about this project, and then they have some interest on this, Pak. Is it possible?
Oh, unfortunately, Pak, thank you for the questions. It's a very great question, Pak. Unfortunately, until now, I still have not seen any regulation regarding that, Pak. So maybe in the future, Pak. Maybe in the future, but right now I'm still not having that kind of regulation that for your question, Pak. The regulations still not exist, Pak, as
Okay,
far as I
so,
know until this day. But
so
but but it's very dynamic actually. So maybe in the few times there is a regulation about what you already said about the local government can create uh, companies for the local companies for the to develop project in their area. Maybe in some way, but right now the relations still not exist as far as I know.
yeah, okay, hopefully, Pak, because I see that this kind of project can be a great a great opportunity for the locals to have additional income, Pak, for local additional
Yeah.
income, Pak. So that's why I talked to some friends in Natuna, in other places in Sumatra as well, Pak.
Okay, Pak. Thank you for the
Thank you,
insight,
Pak
Pak.
Henry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to show you about our next. So actually, Next, the we have in May 2006, 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. Singapore time. We have sustainability report 101 with Miss Eng, and also we have Philippine script in 25 May 2026 with Miss Darlene Velasco. And we also have Introduction to Carbon Accounting on June 1, 2026 with Miss Alicia Wong. And also I will for the sustainability regulatory landscape in Southeast Asia with me, Henry Rantau, in June 2026. Also have of Business Advantage on June 15, 2026. Also, we have also Miss Heng Heng for the Malaysia's National Sustainability Reporting Framework on June 22, 2026. And if you have any inquiries and contact, please contact Miss Heng Heng Ho. This is the email address, and also Miss Teng Lo. This is the email address. So, do you have any questions for this session, Pak? Bu? So, before I finish this talk series, actually, I would like to inform that we in eco-sustainability, hopefully that we can we in eco-sustainability is prepared also to support your company, Indonesia company, to implement the PS. Oke.